So, you're thinking about adding trim accent to your car. Sorry, I thought about doing the intro to this like Donut Media. But seriously, trim accent. What are the pros and cons of adding trim accent to your car? Well, the obvious pro is that it can highly elevate just about any kind of interior into looking like it's, that high luxury type. But it does actually heavily improve the feel of your interior. Um, I can say, like, I've gone and looked at my same exact car without the trim accent that I've added, and immediately it feels like a cheaper level trim. It's crazy how much just a small little amount of color can completely change the feel of the inside of your car. But there are some cons. So, especially depending on which kind you want to get, the light up kind can have more cons than the regular kind, which is just a solid color. Um, a pro of getting the light up kind is it lights up. And if you're deciding to go with the kind that is RGB and can change its color, then you have more freedom with choosing what color you want your trim accents to. But that kind has its own con in itself. The RGB light up kind is clear. So in the daytime, it isn't really going to look all that good. And for me personally, I thought it looked a bit weird. When I went to the store and I was looking at this, I had the luxury of, talking with one of the employees there, and he took me outside to look at his car. And in the daylight, it does look a bit odd having all of this trim accent that is just clear instead of a solid color. So I decided to go with a more solid color type. This isn't the light up kind, but it looks a lot like this. And the downside of picking one of these is that whatever color you pick, that's what you have. You're stuck with it. But for most people, I feel like this won't be a large issue since usually you have a color scheme you're going with. Say that you picked red or blue for your seat covers and you want your trim accent to match that. So keep all of that in mind. Another con of the light up ones, regardless of which light up one you get, is that you will see it on your front windshield. It will reflect. Depending on where you put it, but most people, we're putting it on our front dashboard, and so you're going to see it reflecting up off of your windshield. And depending on the placement, that could be not as bad, or it could be all over the place like mine. In my case, it was everywhere. Like, it looked like I had a heads up display, and it honestly drove me nuts at first. I couldn't, like, it was extremely distracting. I couldn't not see it. But once I changed my mindset and I was like, this kind of looks like a cool cyberpunk aesthetic, which is what I want to go with my car anyways. It's like a heads up display, sort of like if you're playing Halo and you can see the outline of his helmet. And after I changed my mindset about it and I stopped focusing on it so much, half the time I kind of don't notice it's there. So if that's something you think you can't get past, then I highly suggest sticking with the normal, just colored trim and not the light up kind. Mm. And finally, when we're talking about the price points, I can't speak from experience on the more expensive trim, but the cheaper trim that I got off of Amazon, on the cable, there is a thick little box of some sort. It has something to do with the circuitry, but it makes a loud humming noise. If you plug it up inside and it's very quiet, it is horribly annoying. But inside my car, I haven't really noticed it all that well. And it's probably because I've routed the wire inside of the dashboard, which puts a lot of mass between me and the device. If it's extremely quiet and it's on, I can still hear it, but I have it set up to where it turns on and off with the car, and I don't hear it at all while the car's running, so it works just fine for me. Now these are the leftover bits of the two different trim accents that I have in my car. I purchased both as red, and if you notice, the one that I ordered on Amazon is a little bit more orangish than red, but that's okay. And as you can immediately see here, this is far more stiff than, the cheap Amazon stuff. And a comparison of their thickness, much thicker. This is much easier to work with and getting it in a straight line. Before it was all crumpled up like this. I will say it was refreshing to have this be a little bit more squishy when I'm trying to go around sharp, like 90-degree bends and things. So do keep in mind the more expensive kind is of a higher quality, but I don't know if that justifies double the price. And remember, this was more expensive and it doesn't light up. This is just the regular. I would have had to pay twice what this cost just to get the light up kind. I was hoping I would actually have enough left over of this to put that in my doors so that the colors would be more exact throughout the car. However, they don't look that bad in the daylight. They're close enough, and at night, obviously, you can't see this one. Installation is pretty easy. I've already got it in, but what I typically do is that they send you a tool like this, or usually they'll include some kind of tool. You just wedge it in there, usually a little bit further than you want it to go, while gently trying to push it in. You can use this to basically make the gap larger so that you can gently just slide these in. If you're really having to force it, then that means you don't have the pieces separated enough, because you don't want to try to just ram these in. And for further visualization on how to install this, I'm going to demonstrate just on this little piece here. Pretend that this is the tool, and I have stuck it in here and created a wedge just a little bit in front of where I want to start. And that will open a gap in between the pieces of trim. And then I would take this, and what I would do is start like this to where the end, like say this is the start point, start with an end, and then just slowly work it in. Obviously this gap is way too big, but just get it to a nice point. It'll hold a little better in actual trim inside of a car instead of the top of the seat. But then once you get to the end, just cut it about where you want it to stop, and then push it in there, and then it'll just be a nice little accent. And of course, don't forget, once you have put your tool in, you can just keep sliding it. So while it's still inserted, just keep sliding it down the path as you push in the trim pieces. And this is especially necessary with the cheaper trim accent that isn't as sturdy, is that you really want to keep it open near the end. The hard part of all of this is just planning out where you want it to go. Especially if you're getting the light up kind, it has to go in one uniform piece everywhere. So planning is absolutely everything. Just go to your car, find a start point, and then just trace it with your finger. And if you can trace it and find a way to make it work without any breaks at all, then it'll work. Because you have to plug in each strip, and with the cheaper strip it plugged in through USB, so you don't want a whole bunch of them, because then you just have to plug in a whole bunch of things. I mean, you can go that route if you really want to, and you don't mind buying various ones of these and cutting them really short and routing all that wire. If that's what you're looking for, go ahead. But if you want, in my opinion, the easiest solution is to just buy one strip and just try to find the most straight path that will still look good. Now, one thing I haven't talked about yet is actually wiring up the light up strips. Now, there's different routes you can go with this. Some of them you can just wire directly into the car, and some of them plug up through USB. The one that I got is just to plug into the USB. And I ended it close to where an opening for my cigarette lighter was, simply because I could just open the cigarette lighter and toss that wire behind it. I'll probably reroute that later. And it wraps around, it goes through where the fuse box door is, and then it goes behind my radio and comes back out next to the side of the radio where I have a battery installed, and that's a jumpstart battery, and it has USB ports on it, and so I just plugged it into there for now. I do have a fuse box back there that I've added in myself with a lot of extra spaces that I may just go and get like a USB port that I could wire into the car and then plug it in that way, and then I can easily just disconnect it. But it all just depends on whatever package you're buying and whatever you want to invest the time in. If you don't mind a wire hanging, then you can just plug it in by USB. If you have some spare USB ports and that doesn't bother you, or you can kind of do like a half and half like I did, where I got USB, but I still tucked it into the dashboard so that you can't really see the wiring very much. And I feel like it is a compromise. It's a little bit lazy, but I still have options to clean it up more later when I get around to it. And it keeps the wire out of view. And one thing to consider if you are plugging it up by USB is that USB port live all the time? If it is, you may want to consider a different routing, because you want to have the option to turn it on and off. In my case, that little battery, I have it plugged up to the cigarette lighter to charge while I'm driving, and the USB ports on it will turn on automatically while it's charging off the cigarette port. So whenever I turn on the car, the trim will turn itself on. And I do also have the option, if I feel like, just pushing the button on that jumpstart battery and turning it on while the car's off. So I have the freedom to turn it on and off as I please, but I also have it to where it's turning on with the car and turning off with the car if I'm being a little bit lazy and not wanting to always have to turn it on and off myself. Well, I think that's about everything. So if you like this video, think about subscribing. Hit a like below, and it's been Postal268. Thanks for watching.